Today, I want to talk about apathetic zombies. I know that might sound weird, but it's way more common than you think. There's a few common phrases I hear people say when talking about bipolar disorder. Walking on eggshells is one, being like Jekyll and Hyde is another. And circling back around to the video topic, I hear lots of people describe feeling like a zombie or feeling totally apathetic. Usually this statement comes from people who are newly diagnosed and or trying to find the right treatment. Considering I'm not a medical professional, I can only speak from my lived experience, and I have lots of experience, quote, feeling like a zombie. My first example goes back to when I was 27 and diagnosed with type 1 bipolar disorder. I was an absolute wreck, and I hadn't slept in nearly 2 weeks. The doctors put me on a heavy cocktail of medications because, in all reality, I was in crisis. I needed medical intervention to stabilize me. One of the meds they put me on was the maximum dose of a very sedating antipsychotic. I remember complaining to my loved ones that I just didn't feel like myself, or people would ask me why I was so out of it. It was hard to explain. It was like I'd lost my spark or sense of joy. I felt emotionally numb and totally apathetic. I guess you could say I was feeling like a zombie. It's really common for people to be in crisis when they're first diagnosed. The medication protocols for someone in crisis can be different from a typical maintenance dose. My doctors didn't explain this to me. I didn't know that the meds given to me when I was in crisis would eventually change. I assumed I'd feel like a zombie forever, which is one of the reasons why I've quit meds before. Speaking of crisis meds, another scenario is hospitalization. The most heavily medicated I've been was during inpatient hospital stays. They were trying so hard to get me to sleep. I remember pacing the hallways at night, feeling so sedated by the meds. I was tired yet wired at the same time. It's a very uncomfortable feeling and a perfect example of feeling like a zombie. Now, everything I've talked about so far has a common thread. This would be medication dosage. Being over-medicated is a horrible feeling. The sedation, the brain fog, the confusion, not fun at all. But it sure beats staying in a state of psychosis if we're in the hospital. Sometimes it's necessary to be on a heavier dose of meds to help break the cycle. Being over-medicated while not in a crisis state is the problem I'm addressing in this video. I see this all the time with people who are put on new medications. Some doctors like to start at higher doses so they can, quote, see if the med is working. Others will gradually bring you up to a therapeutic dose over time. It really depends on the person, the doctor, the med, and how symptomatic you are. The challenge with new meds is that we have no idea what they will do until we try them. And by try them, I really mean try them. Sometimes med side effects fade over time. Sometimes all we need is a small dosage adjustment for them to work well. And sometimes a second med is needed to work in conjunction with the first. My best advice is to not give up on a treatment protocol so quickly, unless of course the side effects are unbearable. Consider making adjustments before giving up. Be patient with yourself. Unfortunately, I quit meds in the past that work really well for me today. It was just a matter of getting the dosage right, or past the initial side effects. So how do we know if we're over-medicated or not? For me, it means sleeping in excess of 12 hours a day. It means the things that normally bring me joy and happiness generate little or no reaction. My drive to do things I enjoy disappears. I don't get that rush of energy when I hug my partner. My favorite meal tastes like cardboard. Sure, that sounds a lot like depression, but it's quite a bit different. It's like I've lost the ability to feel anything, like I'm emotionally numb. I'm not up or down, I'm just flat, apathetic, like an apathetic zombie. We all want to prevent extreme episodes, but not wipe out other feelings and emotions in the process. How do we still experience the gamut of human emotions without dipping into the danger zone? I guess that's the golden question, and it's not an easy one to answer. We all have our own brand of bipolar disorder, different types, levels of severity, duration of episodes, etc. I rapid cycle, which is even harder to treat. It's a constant struggle for me to stay in the middle or bipolar stable. I often joke and tell people that stable is just a place where horses live. Defining what stability means to me has been an evolving process. I've learned to pay close attention to how high and how low I go. Feeling down for a few days is within my normal range. If I start having suicidal ideations or stay depressed for weeks, that's not an acceptable quality of life for me. On the flip side, if I have a rough night's sleep, I'm not too concerned. But if I don't sleep for several days or end up hospitalized, I might need a treatment adjustment. I want to cry when I watch a sad movie. I want to get excited about my work and hobbies. I want to feel without second guessing every emotion I have or dipping into the danger zone. One way I've managed to do this is to become more self-aware, to thoroughly educate myself on this life-threatening illness and learn words to describe my symptoms. I can tell the difference between euphoric and dysphoric mania now. I know what psychosis and mixed episodes are. I also know when to get my butt to the hospital, but it took time to cultivate this kind of awareness. I spent a lot of time being symptomatic and quite a bit of time being stable. I needed to experience both to define where the middle was. I also rely on the observations of those around me, especially when starting a new med. If people start asking if I'm okay more than usual, I take note. If they say things like, "You've been really out of it lately," or "You don't seem like yourself," I pay attention. Maintaining stability has been a very fluid situation. As I've aged, my bipolar has progressed in severity. I've had to make adjustments to my treatment. I also struggle with seasonal affective disorder, having major episodes in the summer and winter months. It requires additional adjustments. I need more help with depression in the winter and mania in the summer. Getting to know my brand of bipolar and being open to change has served me well. One of my secret weapons to stay in the middle has been a PRN antipsychotic med. Disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I am stepping way out of my comfort zone to share this, but if I haven't slept in a couple of nights and I feel like I'm ramping up, my doctor has allowed me to take a certain med with sedating properties. Sometimes it's enough to stop breakthrough symptoms from turning into mania, especially if I get a good night's sleep. I've talked a lot today about being overmedicated. We also have to consider the possibility of being undermedicated. If the dosage is too low, I'll experience breakthrough symptoms that are very disruptive in my life. I have type 1 bipolar disorder, so this can include full-blown mania and psychosis. The crash after having a major episode can make me feel like a zombie too. I feel like my brain has been squeezed of all its endorphins and I'm emotionally flat, like driving a car with 4 flat tires. I don't want to end this video on a depressing note, so let's switch it up a bit. We're seeing newer and better treatments for bipolar come out all the time. Drugs.com lists over 60 medications related to or used to treat the illness, so we have choices in case one doesn't work. Genetic testing is now a viable option, making it easier to find agreeable meds. It's still far from an exact science, but we're getting closer. For me personally, finding the right treatment was a long battle, but one worth fighting. Yes, things got worse before they got better, but eventually things improved. It's like sacrificing a few years in college so that the rest of your life is better. It's all about quality of life. If you're stuck feeling like an apathetic zombie, please don't settle for that. Advocate for yourself. Talk to your doctor. You could be just one small step away from that fog lifting. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you'd like to connect by phone or video call, there's a link in the video description where I can be reached confidentially. take extra good care of yourselves, and I'll be back here soon with more Polar Warrior videos. Stay well.